So today I'm going to be talking about two books. I've got a little bit of a double hitter for you. The first book is The House in the Cerulean Sea, and then its sequel, Somewhere Beyond the Sea. My last read was Hurricane Season, which I gave 5 stars to. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. However, that book, it's heavy going. It's very graphic. So I've had these on my shelf for a little while, and I was like, do you know what? Let's do something a little bit lighter, a little bit more light-hearted and nicer after, the absolute chaos that was Hurricane Season. Both of these novels are exploring themes of belonging, acceptance, and found family. They also both champion the ideas of individuality, self-discovery, and challenging societal norms. I would say that love, both romantic and platonic, is a kind of the core driving force of the narrative throughout both these novels. So let's kick things off with The House in the Cerulean Sea. What's it about? We follow Linus Baker. He's a pretty straight-laced guy. He does everything by the book. He tries to keep his head down. He tries not to get into too much confrontation, but he likes doing his job to the absolute best of his ability. And we discover very early on that he is very fair, but he is also very firm in following the rulebook. But then, all of a sudden, he is given an assignment, a top secret assignment, in which he has to go to an orphanage on an island. The orphanage is run by the very enigmatic Arthur Parnassus, and he houses 6 so-called dangerous children with very unique abilities. One of these children, the one that the Department of Magical Youth is so interested in, happens to be the Antichrist. But of course, and from me just telling you that, I don't need to tell you anything more other than that for you to know that as Linus is going to spend time with these children, with Arthur, he is going to learn to care for them and to realise that maybe there's more to the world than what he previously thought. And maybe he might learn the true meaning of family and acceptance. Spoiler alert, he does. So what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked? Well, it's very charming and heartwarming. I think if you're feeling a bit low or you're feeling like you need to just feel a bit of positivity in your life, then this is a very whimsical novel. It's filled with like joy and fun and some laughs and love and acceptance and all of these things that we wish the world was and all of these things that make you feel good. I also really liked the children. I thought they had all very distinct and unique voices. They all have these very unique sort of abilities and powers that they have. And I feel like they balance really, really well against each other. It's just a really fun cast of characters. And even though I felt like the world building could have been stronger in this novel, the novel's not really about that. It tries to stay focused on Linus and this island and these kids, and Arthur. And, I think it actually does a fairly decent job of world building, of blending the sort of like our reality with what it would be like if magical beings were living in it. I think it does that pretty decently. I think it well builds enough for you to kind of not have thousands of questions, but my personal taste, I would have liked a bit more, but overall, I think he does a good job. And the final thing I really liked, its themes of self-discovery, of acceptance. I think for a younger reader, would get a lot from this novel. I think for a younger reader, they're going to be taken on a really fun sort of not adventure, but a fun ride, sort of getting to know these characters. But they're probably going to learn a lot about what it's like to live a life without prejudice, to accept and to find yourself and all of those things. And I even think it skirts the lines of actually doing a decent job for adults as well. What didn't I like? First thing is it is insanely predictable. As I said, I could read the blurb to you and you know exactly how this novel is going to go, and it goes exactly in that direction. And a lot of people have bigged this book up, so I thought it was going to do something a bit different narratively and plot-wise, and it doesn't. You can predict everything in this novel. And honestly, that's not being like, oh, I'm so smart, I can predict it. It's just, it's obvious, isn't it? Linus is going to go to the island. He's going to, fall in love with the children. It's just, you know exactly what's going to happen. And I was really disappointed in that sense, because I thought this genuinely was going to maybe go somewhere a bit more challenging narratively. And it really didn't. It's very, very, very simple. I also found that the way all the conflict was kind of like the resolution of this novel was a bit too neat and tidy for my liking. It was very, very clean in the sense that it's like, we can just finish this novel here and not continue on, but we can if we want to. Again, this could be a YA novel. I have no idea. I've seen so many adults read and rave about this book, so I assumed it was kind of, it skirted the edges of both, but a lot of my negatives really fall into the areas of what I don't really get on with in YA fiction. yeah, it was just far too neat and tidy. Everything was like, oh, and that was all happily ever after. Wasn't that lovely? And there needs to be a bit more of a blend there for me. Even if it was for younger audiences, I still don't want something so neat and tidily sort of like cleaned up. And my final dislike is, whilst I adore the moral messaging of this novel, I think it's beautiful what it's trying to say and what it's trying to teach people and what it's talking about. I really, really do. It is so heavy-handed. Like, too heavy-handed. It just jams it down your throat. And it's because it's laying that on so thick. I was going, I don't mind you doing that if you give me something a bit more narrative-wise, if you give me something a bit more, but no, it really didn't. And yeah, it's just too heavy-handed for my tastes. For some readers, they might absolutely love it and lap it up, but me personally, it could have chilled out a little bit. Right, so now let's move on to Somewhere Beyond the Sea. What's it about? So plot-wise, Beyond the Sea is the exact same novel, I shit you not, the exact same novel as The House in the Cerulean Sea. It's the exact same thing happens. I don't know what, are we being punked? It's the exact same thing, except a couple new characters are introduced, and the stakes of like the kind of situation are raised slightly. So if we think about the plot of the first one, you've got the kind of like, you've got this sort of governmental sort of like authority figure sending someone to inspect the island. That's Linus. Linus goes there, falls in love, found family, all of that kind of thing. In this one, it's the same thing. But the stakes are a bit higher. So the government, an extra level up of the government, sends someone to the island to sort of just make sure, see what's going on. That's it. Honestly, I'm not shitting you. That is what TJ Klune has decided to do in this novel as the plot of it. Like, honestly, if you boil it down, that is what this book is about. I couldn't. I was like, you joking me? It's the same book again. Obviously, people might go, no, it's really different. It's not. All they've done is just make the stakes higher. Do you know what I mean? So, like, the people who are coming are a little bit more important. And also, like, now in this one, Linus is firmly on the side of the kids. But of course he is. But other than that, yeah. It's the exact same novel. And if you loved the first novel, then you might not mind that the plot is the same. But I did. So what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked. One thing I liked about this novel that separates it from the first is I feel like the sort of like grief plays a much bigger part in this novel. So even though the plot is the same, I think like the emotional depths of it do go a little bit deeper. So this one is more firmly looking into grief, especially from sort of Arthur's perspective, but from all of the characters' perspectives and almost the trauma that they've suffered. And this novel is about them learning to accept that trauma and to move on from it. And actually that they don't have to protect themselves from trauma or protect themselves from sort of thinking about the trauma they've all experienced, all of the characters, but actually to accept it and allow them to sort of like move on with their lives. And I really like that about this one. I thought like once I finished, I was like, oh, at least it did something a little bit different from the first. And that's the main thing I liked about this one. It does explore that in a lot more detail. But other than that, all of my likes are exactly the same. It's nicely written. It moves well. The characters are all lovely. It does make you feel warm inside. It's real sort of like, it is whimsical with a little bit of magic, and it's really, really nice. And the messaging is still heavy-handed, but it really sort of makes you go, yeah, the world's shit. Let's accept everybody. Do you know what I mean? It's doing the exact same thing the first novel did, and all of those things, I still like them in this one. What didn't I like? Again, it's the exact same things I didn't like about the first one. I thought the plot was very predictable because it is the exact same plot as the first. And yeah, I thought the messaging was a little heavy-handed. However, one thing that I was also a little bit disappointed in this is that we get some side characters introduced in the first novel, and they're very firmly set in the sort of like secondary character position. And I was a bit like, but the nice thing is, a sequel should do what all good sequels do, and it should allow those side characters a little bit more time to shine. But it doesn't. I still felt like the secondary characters were given no way near enough time. We get about as much as we did last time, and I just wanted to know and learn a little bit more about them, to spend a little bit more time with them. We definitely get loads more time with the kids, with Linus, with Arthur, and a few other characters. We definitely get more time with like the central cast, but there are a few scattered around, these little side characters. Some introduced in the first novel, some introduced in this one, and I was just left going, I could have had a bit more time with them. So, my final thoughts for both these novels. I think they definitely have an audience. I think the messaging is really lovely. I just think they're really lovely. They're all about found family, finding your own identity, acceptance, and all of those things I think are really crucial. Again, you might be laughing in the comments going, well, of course it's all heavy-handed, Andy. They're YA novels, but I don't know, I've just seen so many sort of adults read them. And I was a bit like, I felt like they might, the reason so many people were reading them is because even if they were YA, they had something a bit more to offer adult readers, but they don't. They're just this YA. It's for like 16 to 18-year-olds sort of thing. Yeah. They're lovely. They are lovely, but they're just not for me. They're for children. Not children. Don't quote me on that. They're for the younger readers. 2 stars for both of them. They're all right. They're just not what I thought they were going to be, something else. And I think that's kind of what's making me a bit more grumpy about them, is I thought, like, narratively, they were going to be really interesting. And they were going to sort of take this genre in a real different direction. And they don't. They're just a nice, whimsical, lovely, feel-good story. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And if you enjoy these novels, that's great. That's lovely. I'm good. I'm glad you do. But just not for me. So, yeah, 2 stars for both. I don't have the book to hand because most of my books are still in storage and all that jazz, but Legends and Lattes I found to be just way more enjoyable, much more cozy, much more fun. It doesn't do anything drastic sort of plot-wise, Legends and Lattes, but I just... Well, it does, because it's nice to see the sort of an independent start-up business in a fantasy world. It's such a unique, lovely idea, and it explores all these themes of acceptance and found family in Legends and Lattes. I think it does it infinitely better than these books. Infinitely better. And I would pick that every time. So if you're looking for something like that, then definitely go for Legends and Lattes and not these. So there you go. I'm going to leave that there for today. Have you read either of those books? And if so, what did you think of them? Did you love them? Did you hate them? Please let me know in the comments below. And as always, I hope you're well and you're enjoying whatever you might be reading. And I'll see you all on the next one.